Did you know that each hair on your head can hold up the weight of an apple? With about 90,000 hairs on your head at least, you can just imagine how much weight that could hold. Some people even hang from their hair for a circus act. Today, on the FaceTime with Scientists podcast, I'm talking to Stephanie Morphet. She's a scientist turned hair hanger. We're going to talk everything hair. Well, today we're here with Stephanie Morphet. I'm super excited to chat with you because we have some interest in common, which is we're both scientists and we're both circus artists. So I found out that you hang by your hair, literally the hair on your head. And I'm super excited to chat with you about how you got from science to hair hanging and a little bit about the science of hair or how do you take care of your hair as well?
Sure thing. It's a pleasure to be talking to you, Paige. Like you said, my name's Stephanie Morphet. Some people might know me as the Flying Brain. When I started performing, I actually started doing circus stuff while I was getting a doctorate in cellular and molecular biology. I worked for a year in biotech in antiviral and vaccine development and left that in 2019 to pursue circus full time. So it's been almost 7 years that I've been doing circus full time. And like you said, I'm a hair hanger. I'm also a hula hoop artist. I'm a unicyclist and I train a lot of contortion. I wouldn't call myself a contortionist. But I could point you in the right direction if you want to talk to someone about biomechanics. But yeah, so I mean, there's so many things we could talk about when it comes to hair. I was just like brainstorming a bunch of things last night about hair, but also about like the biomechanics and just like different logistical aspects of hair hang and about the history, some myths of the hair hang. And so I'll add the caveat that I don't teach hair hang, and it's not because I wouldn't be capable of it. I've taught a lot of other circus disciplines, but if anyone's ever looked into hair hang or been interested in hair hang, you might notice that it's pretty hard to find someone to teach you. And that's because hair hang's generally regarded as a closed practice, so it's not like silks or lyra or like flying trapeze that you could just like Google a spot and go learn. Granted, since the pandemic, some people have been more willing to teach. But for me personally, I like honoring the tradition of the family that really contemporized the art of hair hanging in North America, which is the Ayala family. Their family has been hair hanging for 5 or 6 generations now. And so they originally hair hang was brought to North America by actually Chinese men. It is very female dominated now, but originally it was brought to this continent by Chinese men, and the act was very different. It was men suspended by their hair, but like sitting at a table drinking
Uh,
tea. And now what you see hair hangers doing is mostly women. It's a lot of contortion, a lot of dance. Um, I, I want to say more artistic, but that's not necessarily the right verbiage because it's still artistic to be drinking tea, hanging
right.
from your hair. But yeah, one of the women from the Ayala family had seen this act and was privately taught the knot. And there's a lot of knots currently available, some better than others. But I really honor and respect that tradition and what that family has done for the art of hair hang and really bringing it into the 21st century. So for me, I don't teach hair hang, and there's certain things that I won't discuss. Like I wouldn't discuss my knot if someone had, and if someone was like, you have to tell me that, I wouldn't tell them. Like
Right.
that's, proprietary information. But that said, if someone desperately wants to learn hair hang, besides the fact that there are some people that are teaching now, I find that if you pay your dues in the circus world, because I think one of the things with hair hang is that there's a lot of people who are like, I just want to try it. And it's like, oh, this
Right.
is actually like a lifestyle. There's so much that goes into this. It's not just something that you try for like a photo op. So for me, learning to hair hang, I had already been in circus for many years. I was on a tour across the United States with Garden Brothers Circus, and I was given the opportunity because I'd already shown my commitment to the art form that is circus. So it's like it's possible, but you might notice that a lot of the people who are high tier professionals aren't willing to teach it. A lot of people don't talk about it. If you're following the tradition of the act, your hair is always covered. You don't show your
Mm.
knot. You always have a hair sleeve on. You'll never
Oh,
catch me with my hair tied and it exposed. I always have a
gotcha.
little custom sewn sleeve over my hair, or if you don't have a custom sewn sleeve, you cut the end off a sock and stick a sock on your head, because the knot is not public knowledge, and that's just like the tradition of hair hang. But some things that I will talk about, and I've had people ask me questions, and even if I don't want to answer a question directly, I'll be like, well, let's think about the science here because a lot of the things you can piece together just thinking about the science of like biomechanics and protein chemistry. Um,
Yes. Okay. Well, this is a good
Mhm.
segue. Okay. So, I mean, I'm just really curious your life as a scientist. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that and what you did and how that now informs your work as a professional aerialist and also how you got into aerial, maybe?
Sure. Well, so my journey just in general in life is like a bit unusual. I actually dropped out of high school when I was 16 years old. And my mother went to the University of Colorado and begged them to let me in. And they looked at some of my test scores and they were like, you know what? Sure. So I started my college studies at 16 at the age or at University of Colorado,
Wow.
and I got 2 degrees there. I got a psychology degree, and then I also studied human biology. And at first, I wanted to be a brain surgeon, but then I kind of had this realization that a good scientist can do more for humanity than any individual medical practitioner. So
Mm.
I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to grad school and I want to develop technologies that help the people that are most often neglected by the medical system. So, diseases in developing countries, diseases that affect people living in poverty, diseases that are affecting people with less resources. So I ended up, like I said, getting my doctorate in cellular and molecular biology from Colorado State. And I worked in a tuberculosis lab under Dr. John Belisle, who I will always sing his praises. And I feel like him teaching me how to learn is still something I use in circus, just like
Yeah.
how to find good information and how to identify what you need to know to do the thing that you want to do. And so my program, my doctorate is cellular molecular biology, but my emphasis was infectious disease. So I learned a lot of microbiology, but also the project that I did was working on developing the scaffolding for a point of care diagnostic for tuberculosis. So, the diagnostic that's used in a lot of high disease burden countries is the sputum smear. So, someone might have to walk or find their way 200 miles to get to a doctor. And then you have to cough up, the gunk that you have when you're sick on a slide. And then that's given to a technician who then is going to stain it and then look under a microscope to try to find bacilli. And I thought,
Wow.
my God, if you're in a country or in an area that doesn't have a lot of medical facilities, doesn't have great transportation access, you feel terrible. I cannot fathom having to commute that far to
Yeah.
try to get a diagnosis. And then second, I'm thinking about the technician. How many slides is that technician looking at every day? Probably hundreds.
You're right.
When you have 300 slides on your desk for that day, how
Right.
much can you care to sit there and scan every corner of that slide for one single bacilli? So it's a bit of a flawed diagnostic, and also children don't produce sputum. So the children, that diagnostic isn't even applicable to them. So I thought it would be so much better if we had a point of care diagnostic. So think about like pregnancy tests, a dipstick assay that you can
Right,
pee in a
right.
cup, you dip it, it says negative or positive. And what is just so cool about Mycobacterium tuberculosis and also Mycobacterium bovis, which causes bovine tuberculosis, which is like very similar pathology, still the same disease, is that there is a glycolipid, so a fat with sugar on it, that is in the cell membrane of Mycobacterium tuberculosis and bovis that isn't found anywhere else in nature.
Interesting. Nice.
And through the kinetics of clearance through the body, as that bacilli gets kicked out of your body into the urine, it survives the kinetic of clearance. It doesn't break down. So that means that if I find that glycolipid in urine, be that a human, be that a cow, because we know, bovine tuberculosis is an issue. Most countries screen for it. A lot of people in like the United States who end up with tuberculosis, it's from like raw dairy, raw
Oh,
cheeses.
interesting.
That's
I
why
didn't
we
know that.
pasteurize our dairy and why raw dairy is not a great idea. Or it could be from a circus elephant. I referenced an article for my doctorate where circus
Really?
elephants were getting tuberculosis. Yes. So no matter what critter it comes from, if I find that glycolipid, I know it's tuberculosis. And so in my doctorate, I also had to learn a lot of analytical chemistry because you have to be able to reliably identify it in a sample. And that was using mass spectrometry. So a lot of analytical chemistry. And then I was able to develop another method using something called phage, which is like a bacterial virus, but we can use it just as a detector molecule um,
Oh,
to then be something that would be applicable for like a dipstick urine assay, the way that we have pregnancy tests or like at home drug tests, like that kind of thing. So in my doctorate, I learned analytical chemistry, I learned molecular biology, I learned cellular biology, I learned a lot of different things because my program was a little bit of a choose your own adventure, which was really cool. So we had people doing like cancer science, renewable energy, and algae. And I was the infectious disease person in the cohort.
that's so cool.
And so then tying that back into the hair hang and hair care, and like I said, like biomechanics and protein chemistry.
Yeah, I can
So
imagine a lot of chemistry, right? So, like, funny enough, I've recently been doing some just diving into the science of hair for this other science communication project that I'm doing. And I mean, I couldn't have told you. I mean, I'm sure I learned it at some point, but like, what is hair made of? Like, keratin, I was thinking, the same thing. I guess your fingernails are made of, but like other than that, I couldn't have told you much about hair. So I'm really interested in like how much like just looking into a little bit, I'm like, wow, there is so much like structural, uh, yeah, protein structure kind of science and chemistry to hair.
right. And so you said it. It's your hair is made out of keratin. What is keratin? It's a protein. So hair care is protein chemistry. And so the analogy that I like to make, that I would think about in the lab when I was working with lipids versus proteins, because fats, lipids, and proteins are very different critters. Um, when I'm thinking about proteins, I would think about an egg.
Mm,
So when you cook an egg, you are irreversibly changing its protein structure. We are denaturing that protein. Okay, how are we doing that? Heat. Heat
right.
damages proteins. So when we're thinking about our hair care, that's why hair hangers don't heat treat their hair. You're never going to see a responsible hair hanger who's going to have a long career. You're not going to see him or her curling, blow drying their hair because that can denature the keratin, the proteins in the hair. Also, a big deviation in pH. So something really acidic or something really basic, so that I think about, like, pickled eggs. Okay, we're irreversibly changing the protein chemistry. So that's something to be aware of. So some of the hair products, what is the pH of those? Or depending on where you are in the country, the water that's coming out of your shower, what's the pH of that? Also salinity. High salt denatures proteins. So I live in
Ah,
South Florida. I go to the beach. I'm going to get in the ocean and then I'm going to wash my hair before I go to bed.
right. That's super interesting. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, like you said, thinking about it as right, it's this protein structure and all of the things that we learn about in terms of keeping your hair healthy. What I think is super interesting is that in like if we're talking about certain populations that have more frizzy hair or curly hair or so like I know I've dived into like kind of like black hair care. There's kind of a long history of maybe hair care that forces kind of a straightening or relaxing or using like high heat, a lot of processing of the hair to get it to do something in particular. And I think that like there's more and more awareness that has just like caused a lot of damage to black women's hair, a lot of like breakage, a lot of you know negative things to hair. So I imagine when we're looking at kind of hair hanging, it's that like probably going away from like all of the things where it's like processing your hair to look good to like focusing on how structurally sound is my hair.
And there's a couple things in there with what you just said. First of all is the disulfide bonds. There's disulfide bonds in hair. And if we break those, um, be that heat treatment, be it relaxing, bleaching, the more you damage those disulfide bonds, the weaker your hair is. But then also, I appreciate that you brought up ethnicity because this was the first thing on my list. And so something I love about Circus is there is something for everyone. And as someone who used to teach, silks, lira, sling back in Colorado, um, I worked with a lot of different bodies. And I find that in Circus, you can find a way to make things work for anyone, no matter what their body is, no matter what body they inhabit. The caveat, I would say, hair hang, iron jaw. I think a lot of those two disciplines is genetics. You can
Oh,
support your hair health, but if you don't have the genetics for it, it's not probably an act for you. Melanated hair is stronger than lighter hair. Does this mean that a blonde person can't hair hang? No. But for a blonde person to hair hang, their hair on average is going to have to be healthier and denser than the average person with melanated hair because just by the biological composition of melanated hair, it's naturally going to be stronger.
that's super interesting. Well,
So,
also
number
just
one
because
is
yeah,
genetics.
that's super interesting because, I've always been intrigued by hair hanging, probably because I don't have, for those who don't seeing me, I have very, very short hair. I have blonde hair. But from when I was a child, so I have a sister who is right under me and she has like long brown hair, and it grew down to her butt, like, our whole young lives, it was already really long. My hair would just like fall out. Like I remember it was just like falling on my pillow and my mom was really worried, like, why is her hair breaking? So I never grew really long hair. And it was also my hair is very like textured and curly. And so it's almost like even if you let my hair grow, it wouldn't grow super long. And I've been listening to some like science of hair, and it's like, okay, well, some people just, it's actually their hair kind of like the hair cells and the follicles will like produce stem cells that are longer lived. So maybe like if you have long hair, yours can grow for a longer period of time than mine, but maybe also mine is just breaking off. So I thought that was really interesting to like, why is different hairs like colors or textures or like you said, genetics different from that like strength perspective. And so I
Mhm.
mean, do you have like quite straight straight long hair, and has it always been long? Has it always been
Yeah, so people have asked, like, "What do you do for your hair?" And granted, I do some things and I can talk about it, but the first thing I say is, "Guys, I'm Native American. My entire life, I have had hair down to my thighs."
Gotcha.
And so now, because one thing that I don't know if you've run into in your studies on hair, and something that I didn't learn until my 30s, um, birth control and the hormones in birth control, and therefore also pregnancy, has a huge impact on hair. So there's also a documented phenomenon of girls who've been on birth control a long time and they stop taking it and suddenly they lose a lot of hair. In the same
Mm,
way that your hair grows when you're pregnant and then postpartum, you lose a lot of hair. There's that hormone impact, right?
right.
And so in my 30s, when I got off birth control and I lost some hair, I was like, what is going on? So with that, I started using like the oils and being more mindful about my hair care, but having my hair grow long or like it being brittle, like that's never been a thing because I'm just genetically blessed
Right.
for that. Um, but, some of my rules and, I've made videos on like hair care, and there's definitely things you can do to take better care of your hair. So, one of mine is no elastics. Elastics will rip your hair. And my thing is, if hanging from my hair, and like, I don't know if you know this, I have the Guinness World Record for most weight held while suspended from hair.
Yes, I was gonna
If
mention that.
holding that amount of weight while I hang from my hair doesn't tear my hair, nothing will, you know?
True,
So,
yeah.
like, no elastics. Elastics will tear your hair, so I use, like, satin or silk scrunchies. I don't
Gotcha.
sleep on cotton pillowcases. I sleep on silk pillowcases. How you brush your hair can have a big impact. So another thing that can denature proteins is mechanical agitation. So I see people who will start brushing their hair from up here, but the problem with that is if there's a knot here, you're just gonna tighten the knot.
Ah,
So you want to go from the bottom and work your way to the top so you can work the knot out and not tighten it. So like stuff like that can make a big difference. Being mindful of the products you're using. So you'll never see me use like hairspray or gel. Certain things I won't touch. The shampoo and conditioner I use have rice water protein in them. And I'll use certain oils in my hair, but also the different climates that I'm in impact my hair care routine. So a couple months ago, I was performing in Phoenix. It's hot, it's
ah,
dry. I put so much more oil in my hair than I normally would here in the tropics in South Florida. So, climate has a big impact as well. And then, there are supplements. I do take biotin. I question if
mm,
it actually does anything. I take it, but I don't know if it actually helps anything. But I will say bigger than taking a biotin supplement is diet.
yeah, I
Diet,
was gonna
diet,
say,
diet, diet,
right,
because I've noticed and in the past about year, I've been really meticulous about tracking my macros and knowing what I'm eating. And if I don't get enough protein, your hair is one of the first things if you're consistently not getting enough protein, your hair is one of the first things that your body's like, "Okay, I don't actually need this. Let's just get
right,
rid of this because I need to take care of vital things," and the hair is not a vital thing.
right.
So, diet's huge. I know, like, the healthy fats are important as well. Um, but yeah, and then like I said, like, no heat treating, no bleaching, no dyeing, but also something to think about, people fixate a lot on hair health. It's not just hair health, it's scalp health.
Well,
Your
that's what I was
scalp
gonna
needs
say.
to be healthy.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you about, like, okay, obviously, you're hanging by your hair. And so, I mean, we've been talking about this, but for people who haven't seen it, you should maybe Google hair hanging because it's quite something to see someone, I mean, literally, the hair is holding the entire weight of your body. So, I mean, obviously, you would worry about the hair itself breaking, but I imagine with a lot of hair, I don't know have the number of how many hairs you have on your head. I don't know if you have that number, but there's a lot of hair. So I mean, like that it's also like where that hair is attached to your scalp, I imagine is like where most of the force is going, you know? So it's like, is it really is do you worry about breakage of the hair as much as you worry about that like attachment of the hair to your scalp?
So I'm biased. I studied physics and I feel like I can be pretty clever sometimes.
Right.
So I feel like the knot that I have is the best knot in the world now. With some knots that I've seen, the tension ends up uneven if you don't know
Mm,
how to brush your hair before you tie it. Yeah, absolutely. Breakage or tearing out chunks. Yeah, that happens to a lot of people. If you're doing
gotcha.
it correctly, though, and you have the right hair health and the right scalp health, no, I don't lose or break hair from hair hanging. But again, that really depends on the quality of the knot and like the hair and the scalp health that you
Right.
have
Right.
going into it.
Yeah. Well, as a scientist too, as someone with a scientific background, right, I think we tend to be more skeptic of usually like claims, having products not be regulated where, you know, they can make claims that maybe aren't true. So as a scientist, how do you go about making sure like finding the right things or avoiding potentially dangerous things? Like, yeah, what do you do to find the like quality or like good products?
I mean, 2 things. One, there's always going back to the primary literature and being like, is there unbiased research to support these claims? Um, I had a luxury hair care brand who wanted to pay me to promote their products, and I looked at their products and was like, "No, keep your money.
Right.
I'm not interested in promoting something that I wouldn't use." Um But also for me, I tend to like to keep things as natural as possible. And, that might just be my philosophy and my culture. Like the rice water protein that's in my shampoo and conditioners. I actually learned about that. I don't know if she's Japan's only hair hanger anymore. Back when I met her, her name's Taiko. She was like the Japanese hair hanger. And her dad worked at a shampoo and conditioner like laboratory. And like Japanese people have known about rice water protein for a very long time. That that's really good for hair. And she was like, "Oh yeah, I learned about this from my dad. This is what's going on in the hair labs in Japan." And I was like, "Oh,
Oh,
okay, let me get in on that." So, for me, I think tried and true has a lot of value, and it was that way when I was in the lab too. Like I said, the detecting reagent that I used for my project during my PhD was phage. And I was, I don't know, like 27 at the time. And I really wanted to use the new sexy technology, the new sexy RNA technology, aptamers. And I went to my PI and I was like, I want to use aptamers. This is new. This is exciting. And the wisdom of John Belial, he was like, absolutely not. We don't know anything about that. No, you're gonna use phage. And I was like, that phage? Phage is so 80s. And he was like, yeah, we know a lot about it. We're using phage. So a lot of it is, tried and true. Is there primary literature to support these conclusions? Also, I mean, if we're getting down into like nitty gritty, I think it's important to look at things like dosages because people can say this is really good for you or this is really bad for you. But then when you look back on this study, you're like, oh, it's good for you at this dosage, and this is what I've purchased, or it's bad for you at this dosage, and this is what I'm consuming. So things like that, just like thinking through what are the real life implications of the science that's been done in these areas.
yeah, it's so true. Yeah, there's so much that is able to be claimed because just like you said, it's like, "Oh, well, this is beneficial," but if you look at the dose, it's, like, way far away from what you're taking, so it's like, are you even doing what good are you doing? And maybe you're s spending a lot of money doing it, so Yeah, I just imagine as a coming from a science background, your ability to kind of be more skeptical and kind of really look at the science of these things is really beneficial. Well, to get back to like the active herring, you have a Guinness World Record, right?
There's definitely people giving me a run for my money now, which, like, if you break my record, take it. Once I got into the contortion stuff, my focus shifted very much to that than from the heavy lifting. Because when I started doing circus full time, um, being really honest, I didn't have tricks. I wasn't a ballerina. I didn't have skills. I didn't grow up in a circus family. I was strong and I learned how to hang from my hair.
Right.
So my original hair hang act was me playing bongos, hair hanging, because I had no tricks. And
Oh,
like,
then that's cool.
I will say that you don't always need the best tricks. Like, I figured out very early on that even if you don't have the most impressive tricks, if the audience enjoys what you're doing, you'll get work. If
Right.
you can make the audience feel something, you'll get work. And granted, I've worked incredibly hard over the past 6.5 years to develop tricks, but I think beyond that, it still goes back to if you can make people feel something, that's a marketable act. Um, but when I couldn't bend at all, and mind you, I started contortion when I was 30 with a bad back, but I couldn't bend at all. I was like, well, I'm strong. So I'm gonna go with that, and so I didn't act. I'm actually wearing their shirt, Shoestring
Nice.
Circus, shout out to Shoestring, in Bellingham, Washington. I did part of my act for them was that they made a custom swing set, and so I would be in, like, an aerial sling, inverted, upside down, and they would clip this swing set into my hair and then pull people up from the audience to swing on the swing
Oh
set
my
hanging from my hair.
gosh. Oh my god.
Eh,
That is
it is
so
it was really fun.
That is so cool. I love
But
that interactive element of that one. I've never seen that. That's so
yeah,
cool.
I don't know if anyone else has done it. Um, Not that I know of, maybe, but it's really cool and, like, fun audience participation, but since I've developed some contortion chops now and can do some of the bendy tricks, I definitely don't train to lift heavy like I used to. So
Yeah.
when someone breaks my record, like, shout out to that person, "You're amazing," but for now, it's mine.
Yeah.
I
No,
did
what
get in the world record book for 2024, so, I can still have that book next to my diplomas and feel good about it.
That's amazing. Well, I love 2 things you said. One is if you make your audience feel something, my wheelhouse is science communication, but same there. If you can make your audience feel something, tell a compelling story, right? Like, it helps people engage with science in ways that they wouldn't otherwise. So, I love that. But also in terms of talking about you're just strong, able to be strong in hair hanging. What does that look like? Like how do you get stronger hanging from your hair other than like what's already, the strength of the hair? I imagine you can't strengthen your hair itself. Like how do you get stronger hair hanging?
It's neck and upper back. So that's a thing too, with learning to hair hang, like, you might have the hair for it, you might have the scalp for it, but if you don't have the neck strength, don't do it
Right.
yet. You gotta develop that neck strength, and a lot of people will spend upwards of a year just developing the neck strength and upper body strength because also I think something people don't realize, and now I've been hair hanging for 8 years, it's incredibly second nature. But if I get lifted up and I'm just, like, chilling, I'm just, like, loosey-goosey, you're gonna hurt yourself. The entire time that I'm in the air, I am squeezing my neck to protect my spine.
Wow.
And I've heard some hair hangers say that, like, "Oh, they can't turn their head when they're hair hanging." That means your neck isn't strong enough. Not that it can't be strong enough, but if you are just, like, up there limp like a straw man blowing in the wind and you can't control what's
Right.
going on here, you shouldn't be up there yet. It's dangerous and, like, you can really hurt yourself. Like, people talk about the dangers of hair hanging, and, I mean, it's like circus in general.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of inherent dangers in circus. There's a lot more inherent dangers in circus if you're doing something wrong or you're not ready for it. And I feel like hair hang is one that, if you tie your hair wrong, you could fall, you can detach your scalp from your skull, um, like, you can get hematomas under your scalp. And if you just don't have the strength for it, yeah, you can do damage to your spine and your discs and the muscles in your neck, like, and that's something that we know with circus, and that's, I feel like, as circus practitioners, something we have to be mindful of, am I ready for this? Can I do this sustainably? And if you can't, how do I build that? It's not
Right.
like, oh, you'll never be able to do it. I've learning this with unicycle that I'll see some of the guys from King Charles Troop do something and be like, am I ready for that? And they'll get to the gym and be like, nope. you know? And like some people are like, just try it. And I'm like, I'm 36. I'm not gonna just try it. But then you think about, okay, how can I spot myself to do this? How can I develop this strength? How can I develop this proprioception? How can I develop this control? If you're not ready for it now, it doesn't mean you won't be ready for it in a week, a month, a year. When I started training contortion at 30 with a bad back, people thought I was nuts. People told me I was wasting my money, I was too old, I was too broken. But I was like, I'm gonna try to do it. And with good coaching, because good coaching is important, I've made really great progress. Like I said, I still wouldn't call myself contortionist, but I'm hoping to have my butt to my head by 40, and no one would have thought that that was possible at 30. It was just a dream. But that's the thing with dreams. Dreams are only dreams until they're reality. And the difference between a dream and reality is just the time and the diligence and the effort and being willing to get back up every time you fall down.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I think there's some amount of a scientific mindset here that maybe we don't always appreciate planning out that from step A to step Z, And I think that's yeah, where some people might be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna," for example, "just try," and not, like, realizing, like, hair hanging or, like, whatever it is, and not realizing, like, all the things that you need to get to that final step to be safe, to be healthy. Um, I mean, yeah, and I think some of that is just, like, not knowing enough. I don't know, I remember starting pole, so, literally, dancing on a pole, for those who don't know. So, as an aerialist, like, you would think I know enough about pole, but, like, if I would watch a pole video and be like, "Oh, that looks cool, I'll try that." But it's like, it was way above my level, but I didn't know that. It's like there's a point at which you're so beginner, it's hard to look at things and realize what it would take to get there versus when you're, like, more mastered. Like, now I can look at something in silks, I can look at someone doing that and be like, "I definitely can't do that," because I know what that takes. And so, like, it's like, how do you get to that level? It's just maybe just getting curious and learning more. Maybe that's just every single field that you have to do that for yourself in, but there's that level of, like, knowing enough to know that there's some things you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree that it's a very scientific mindset. And that's why I give a lot of credit, even for my circus career, to my PhD mentor, because he taught me how to learn. And whether that was analytical chemistry or that's learning ballet for the first time at 36, I'm able to see where I want to be and break that into pieces, because I feel like a lot of people get caught up in, let's say I want to be a ballerina. I'm 36. I've never taken a dance class. And they just see the prima ballerina, the end product, and they're like, I can't do it.
Right.
And it's about being able to break that into bite-sized pieces that are gonna get you there, in the same way that writing your dissertation if you're just like, all right, I got to write this, 300-page
Right.
document with hundreds of references and years of laborious research, like you got to do like that's so overwhelming,
Yeah.
but that's not how we got through it, is it? It was like, okay, today I'm going to write this paragraph and tomorrow I'm going to make this figure. Like it's very methodical and very planned and very strategic. And I feel like being able to think like that has given me such a leg up as an artist.
Yeah.
And that's also part of the reason why I keep the name Flying Brain, even though I'm not in
I
science
know, I love
anymore.
that, I
But I'm
love
like,
it. Yeah.
man, it's still so deeply in there that, I'm debuting my unicycle act in September at Black and Indigenous Circus Week in Philadelphia. And going from, mind you, I've never ridden a bicycle. I can't ride a bicycle. I feel like I probably could now. I haven't tried
Right.
it. But going from someone who's never ridden a wheeled thing to being able to perform a professional act on a unicycle, it was so methodical and intentional and strategic. And if you're doing this for fun, do it for fun. Live your
Right.
best life. If you want to do this as a professional, it has to be more strategic than that. Because what would be fun? Man, I would love to just bop down the beach on my unicycle in a bikini and just be like, "Oh my god, life is great," But, like, that's not gonna get you
Yeah.
to a level where you can do this professionally and make a sustainable income year round. You have to be so much more strategic and methodical about it and meticulous to get to that level. And that was a big shift in my brain because originally, like I'd said, I'd started doing aerial stuff during my doctorate just to stay sane because I was in the
Yeah.
lab all day.
Oh, yeah, I can totally
And
yes.
then, I couldn't bring myself to do like muggle workouts. And so I was like, all right, let me try this aerial stuff, see if I like it. Loved it. So I'd be in the lab all day and then go train some aerial stuff for a couple hours in the evening. But when I made that transition to being like, this is what I'm doing full time now, my mentality switched 100% because it wasn't just fun anymore. Now this is my career. And I told myself, I'm going to do this like I did my PhD. I'm going to work so hard every single day at it and build something versus just like, okay, I'm doing this for stress release, I'm doing this for exercise, which like nothing is wrong with that. But all means, like if circus is your outlet, like yeah, live your best life, enjoy your outlet. But I do think that the mentality is incredibly different when you want to do it full time and reach this level of mastery that you see in people who are like fifth generation circus and have been doing this since they were 2. The guy who taught me how to ride a unicycle, he's a third generation unicyclist and he's been unicycling since he was 4.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh man, I've got some catching up to do then.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, I totally relate to you, and I mean, in some ways, I'm very much of a hobby aerialist myself just because it's like I have a full-time job as a science communicator, I do a lot of things, aerial has always been, like, my escape, at the same time, I'm pretty strong because I was also an athlete, in college, which is a little bit more like a job, so that there's enough I'm able to kind of train efficiently enough with a small amount of time that I'm able to, like, make progress, but I do think, yeah, like, living that full time and you mentioned, like, going back to the beginning, kinda, like, wrapping up a little bit is, like, mentioned that hair hanging is very much a lifestyle, and I imagine you're kinda talking about that, like, taking it seriously from a full hair care diet, everything is gonna be centered around making my hair healthy to developing an act that is beautiful, strong, and tells a story to the training that's gonna be making sure you don't get hurt, so it's sustainable for you to stay in the field for a long time. But yeah, is there anything else that is that lifestyle for you?
I mean, there's just so many things that go into the hair hang. A couple other ones that I'd written down. I see a lot of people who aren't thinking about biomechanics and spinal alignment when they tie their hair. They just go, oh, it goes on the top of my head. if you tie your hair here, where is it going to pull? If you tie your hair here, where is it going to pull? So thinking about the biomechanics and the spinal alignment to inform you of the most sustainable place to place it makes a big difference. The other thing is pain. Because I'd written down some myths here, and that is my least favorite preconceived notion about the hair hang is how horrendously painful it is. Now, I have known people that have performed hair hang for 2 decades and will tell you every day it felt like boiling water being poured on my scalp. That's when I'm like, there wasn't another act you wanted to do?
I
Like,
know, right?
and that was okay? So I definitely think, because that's the number one question I get asked, is it painful?
Right.
And when I did Tengo Talento, Mucho Talento, which is a TV show, it's kind of like Latinos Got Talent. Mind you, my Spanish isn't great, and so the judges asked me, "Is it painful?" And I said, "Well, no, not to me." And then they brought out a translator because they were like, clearly she didn't understand the question.
Like, it's surely painful.
Yeah, and so when people ask, "Is it painful?" I say, "Well, is brushing your hair painful? Is having your hair braided painful? Are you someone that, like, if your bun's too tight, you're like, ooh, like, okay, then it's not gonna be something that would work for you." So I do think also that genetic factor of just like inherent pain tolerance plays a big part into it. But also, I feel like that's just aerials in general. Granted, like,
Yeah.
hair hang is, like, scalp sensitivity, but, like, you do silk, so, to me, I cannot stand the sensation of doing a drop and having the silks, like, tourniquet around my leg, like, oh, no, I would rather hang from my hair than have that, like, cinching feeling, um, but yeah, that's one of the things that all the time, the second people find out I'm a hair hanger, they're like, "Well, doesn't that hurt?" And I'm like, "No, not not to me."
Right.
And so I just wanna, like, take a second to debunk that myth that every hair hanger is just, like, an excruciating pain. Like, yeah, there's some people, and talking to those people, like, "Hey, live your life, make your choices." To me, I wouldn't choose to do an act that I thought was just miserable because it was so painful and uncomfortable, but, like, hey, if that's how you wanna live your life, that's what you wanna do. But absolutely no, not every hair hanger's up there being like, "Ah," like, no,
Right.
that'd be miserable. I think hair hang is one of the most magical things. It feels like flying. I love the freedom of it, because coming my original aerial apparatus was Lyra. And you gotta think about how you're holding on, you know? Even if you're not holding on with your hands, if you're, like, doing a running man, squeezing your legs out against the hoop, you gotta remember that you're squeezing your legs out on that hoop, you know?
Right.
And hair hang just has this freedom that you can use your whole body because your head's tied to the ceiling. And when I started doing circus full time professionally, my mom was nervous about it. And I was like, "Mom, it's okay. I'm not gonna fall. My head is tied to the ceiling." Like,
Yeah,
really,
true.
I picked the winning act here, because I've done a lot of other acts. I did this act with the Espana family, where we were up like 40 feet up on this track that Martin Espana had built. He's driving his motorcycle around this track, and his wife and I are dangling like on the other side of it and doing like a neck spin. And
Oh.
like, I'll tell you, when I let go of those bars and did my neck spin, every show, one tear of horror would come. I was like, oh man. Whew. And I was always like, what happens if I like sneeze?
Oh, yeah.
I'll just go pop out of that loop, and
Oh
so
my
like,
gosh. Yeah, with every other apparatus, right, if you're not tied in, you're you can fall. But yeah, you're right, like a hair
yep,
hang,
yep,
at
but
least you're
again,
tied
like,
in
different
secure.
things for different people. There's plenty of people who are like, "No, I would much rather be in a neck loop than hang from my hair." I'm like, "Alright, fair," and that's what I love about circus is there's something for everyone. You don't have to be a hair hanger, you don't have to be a contortionist, you don't have to be a juggler, you don't have to be a tightrope walker, like, pretty much every type of individual that would be interested in circus, you're gonna find something that works magnificently for you, and even within that discipline, um and, I started ballet, like, 8 months ago, so I'm no expert in ballerinas, but, like, my understanding of the ballet world has always been, like, you need this body type, you need to dance on point, you need to have the
Right.
best extensions, you need hyperextension in your elbows and your knees, you need this level of flexibility, like, you gotta do all these things, and I feel like that's something that's really special about circus is it's not so much like that, and when I
Yeah.
used to, work with, like, pre-professional teens, I would always impress that on them of you don't have to be the best at everything. If you're a great spinner, spin hard. If you're bendy, great. If you tell a story, great. Like, if you're strong, great. You can find your niche in circus, and you don't have to be like the person next to you. You can just be you and use the things that you do well. And that's just like one of my favorite things about circus is that there's so much space for the individual.
I so much agree. I love that about it too. I mean, because I was an athlete before, a diver, right? And it's like, yeah, I mean, when you go to competition, you're being judged on the same things as everyone else, like it's standardized. And I loved finding circus for that reason of like, it's really an art, there's not really, it's very hard to compare any individual circus artist because even I mean on silks like I'm a very like flowy strong movement person, not like dynamics or big drops or like there's like a million things even in a single apparatus to do a little bit differently. um in regards to like we could chat all day, so I want to wrap up soon, but like funny enough, I just had someone on the podcast this morning who is a researcher studying pain, and it's all about like pain is very much a perception and an individualized experience as well. Like there's obviously science to pain, but like everyone experiences pain differently. And if you expect something to be painful, it's painful. And if you don't expect it to be, it's not. And I just think that's fascinating. There's a whole like science to that. And I mean, for me, like I think I have a high pain tolerance for some things, like a silk, like wrapping around, and that maybe it's just what you get used to. Like, I feel like, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's painful. If I get like a burn from the silk, it's painful. But generally, I'm like, oh, it feels good, like to have that like security on my, body, or like it's holding me. But I don't know if I have like a stomach ache or something, I'm like like I'm like a
Same
big baby, right? So
with
it's very much depends what type of pain we're talking about, or like marathon type, those like type of people that just want to go like hike a mountain and be miserable for like 8 hours. I'm such a baby. I'm like, get me out
yeah,
of
the
these
type
hiking
2
shoes.
fun people.
Yeah, like I cannot do it. So it's funny. I
Yeah,
guess.
it's interesting how all these different aspects of humanity like play into what's a good fit for who. And like you said, there's a scientific component to pretty much all of it. We could get into the science of personality, we could get into the science of pain perception, we can get into the genetics of hair or strength or all these different things. But I think that's what's just so magnificent about circus is there's a space for everybody. And you don't have to be one type of person or have one type of skill set. You can truly like forge your own path and put yourself into your art and into the athleticism. And it's not one size fits all. We got to fit you into this box. Like there's so much room for the individual in the art. And I think that's so special. So if anyone out there is like, "Should I try circus stuff?" Yeah, you absolutely should.
Yes, yes. Yeah, maybe science needs to learn more from circus, to be honest, because that idea of like finding what's right for you versus fitting into a box, I feel like it could apply really everywhere. It really helps everyone. It's just that circus has become a place that's celebrated.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much. I've learned so much and just enjoyed chatting with you. So, if
it's
people
been a
want to follow
pleasure.
you online, where can they find you?
Oh, so all my handles are at the Flying Brain, and you can check out theflyingbrain.com as well. But really, my Instagram is where it's popping. So feel free to follow me on the gram. And yeah, it was a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me to talk about science and circus, my two favorite things.